Sean Murphy, opening the magic of the accessibility tree and accessibility API.
I'll just have to pick up on Steve's comment, his joke at the beginning, because I really related to that. That's the like struck I related to, because, you know, I'm a tester, I look at products, I comply, and I live in the dark. So it really works for me. So that's a very good joke. Okay, so I'm amazed I've got so many people here because this topic is somewhat technical and somewhat boring. But we'll just get going and let's see how we flow. I am going to try and do a live demo at the end, and I am going to give you all a full sensory input. So visual, auditory, and no tactile. That's later. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about the Accessibility API, the Accessibility Frameworks, and Accessibility Tree. I'm going to give you like a view, some tools that you can use. Basically, what this all is related to is how, when people develop applications, what happens to make that assistive technology work better. And that's the theory behind it. It doesn't always work.
Accessibility framework.
So in this whole framework, we have the actual overview is every modern operating system has technology that allows the application to talk to the assistive technology via some form of framework. The framework has been around since 1997, and it's used in every product here. Like Apple uses it, Microsoft uses it, Google uses it, and it takes some of the burden off your developers. So when people develop web pages, it's used in that environment, and it allows you to take it to the next step. So you don't have to. All you have to worry about is what you have to do. So you don't have to know the mechanics behind it. I'm not going to go into the methods and objects and all that sort of stuff. I'm keeping this very high level because we'll be here a lot longer than we need to be.
Bullet flow of accessibility
frameworks. So flow is relatively simple. I've got two examples to show, and I'm just going to give a very high overview, then I'll go through the example. I'm going to go through each step before I start. Who here is visually impaired? Put your hands up, go on. Yeah, geez. Okay. I preferred if you yelled. That's why I called my hands up. Anyway, so basically you've got one side is your assistive technology. And I'm going to use, for my demonstration, I'm talking about screen readers, but this also works with other technology. The other side, you've got the nasty application. And I'll use that very purposely, because there are applications there that do not support the accessibility API. If they did, my life and other people who rely on this sort of environment would make their life a lot easier. Then, in the middle is your framework. And that framework is the glue, as I like to call it. There's certain methods, there's certain objects and certain properties that can be populated and utilised to give the information to the person who's using the assistive technology.
Screen reader example.
Yeah, here you are. Sorry. When I developed these slides, I had I put sound prompts for me in case I couldn't use my speech. So we're getting double speech. Okay, so the flow for the web is my first example.
Bullet screen reader sends events via the API to browser to perform actions.
Okay, everyone got that?
Bullet screen reader sends events via the API to browser to perform actions. Bullet screen reader.
Ah, shit, I'm down the bottom, sorry.
Slide screen reader web example.
Okay.
Bullet web page is loaded.
So the page is loaded, right?
Bullet DOM is populated with whole web page.
Your DOM is populated with all that beautiful stuff you guys do, all the visual stuff, all that excellent stuff you guys develop.
Bullet accessibility tree populated.
Then the tree gets populated. The tree in your browser is a parallel structure as the DOM, but it doesn't contain everything.
Bullet mappings established.
There's a mapping between your UI elements. So if you've got a button, there's a mapping that's in the accessibility framework, which assistive technology comes along and says, hey, what is this? And this is a button. Oh, okay, I'll tell the person this is a button. Okay, that's how simple it is.
Bullet screen reader retrieves accessibility.
Then I'll summarise it. Then it will get the information and it will convert it in a way that the person can understand it,
Bullet screen reader builds accessible UI.
Then it builds its own accessible UI. So in Windows screen readers like NVDA and JAWS, they use what they call a virtual buffer. It's built its own virtual environment.
Bullet screen reader sends events via the API to browser to perform action.
Then I do an action. I click a link, I activate, or I press enter on a link, or I activate a button, or do a drop down, or whatever I'm doing. An event is sent back via the API into the application. Now, there's a caveat here. IE and JAWS use the framework, but also interrogated the browser directly. Now, that probably also occurs in other screen readers. I don't know exactly that technical level, but there is sometimes the screen reader developers out there will have to go bypass the API because they're not getting what they need. Just so you're aware.
Screen reader Slide 5.
Okay.
Bullet trigger action. Slide 5. Screen reader app example.
So now we're talking about app. The web one's a lot easier because all the heavy lifting when you do your web development, and everyone here today would have got all the RE information and the best practice and all that sort of stuff. Once you've done your best practices, the browser does all the work for you. Isn't that nice? So application developers, if you're in the old Windows and the old desktop world, and I prefer it, don't like the old, but it shows my age because I prefer desktops applications. It has to be done in the application. It has to be done in the development environment. So if you're using .NET, it has it built into it. If you're using Apple's Swift, it's built into it if you use the standard libraries they provide. So the application's launched.
Bullet program is executed. Bullet accessibility API properties and events programmed by app.
So the application programs the accessibility API, tells it what it needs to know.
Bullet screen reader retrieves accessibility information.
The screen reader retrieves it. So you get in the flow here, guys. One's on one side, the other thing's on the other side, and they're talking to each other. It's a two-way conversation.
Bullet current object with focus accessible.
Then whatever focus you're on, you do an action, then an event is sent back to the application and triggers it, or sometimes for the API. It all depends on what you're doing and what information you're retrieving.
Bullet trigger
The accessibility API.
The accessibility API itself is the more interesting stuff. It's a hierarchical tree.
The accessibility API. Bullet component of modern OSs.
It's, as I said right at the beginning, it's in all your modern OSs. It's in Android, it's in iOS, it's in Mac, it's in Windows, it's in Linux, it's in OS2. Who here uses OS2? You don't know what you're missing.
Accessibility AP is. Bullet bridge between the application.
So it's a bridge. It's
bullet structure objects in a hierarchical order. Bullet structure objects in a hierarchical order.
Okay, so it also has objects. So every time you have something on your screen, it's got objects. It's got properties in there, which those properties are going to be programmed by the application to tell the screen reader or the assistive technology what information you need. So some common APIs, and when they're developed, I'm not going to go through this. You can look it up yourself. Basically, 1997, MSA was developed. There is a bit of a story behind that, and it's neighbourhood myth. I'll put that out there. But what I heard is there was a court case in the US, or some force from the NFB, which is the National Federation for the Blind, making Microsoft to make MSEA available. Because that was when the big change occurred to Windows, and everyone was using the Microsoft platform. If that's true or not, well, it's a good story. So up to now, you'll find in 2000, in the 2000 we had UIA, which is the one currently in Windows 10. You have the Apple's accessibility UI interface. Now, if you're developing mobile apps for that platform, if you use their normal objects, then you go through their normal process, you'll develop an accessible object or button or control or a drop-down. If you do a custom, then you have to put the work in. Same in some of the Microsoft platforms, you do the right thing and you follow their guidelines. Once you step outside the guidelines and the standard libraries that are available, you, as the developers, have to put it in. And that's where it starts to break.
Common properties. Common properties. Bullet name.
So the common properties, a name. A name is your label. OK button, so OK is your label. Or name field, and so on.
Bullet description. So
description is used more, I think, in the Apple platform. I don't very rarely see it in the Windows environment. I have seen it in the web framework, and I saw it yesterday at a one of the sessions attended where an ARIA or some coding in the actual page was populated in that field, so the screen readers will give you extra information. And that's really for.
Bullet help.
The help is just extra information on that specific control. I have not seen much use of it when I've evaluated products.
Bullet roll.
Roll is your button, or your list, or your whatever it is.
Bullet state.
State is a disabled, enabled, focus, etc.
Bullet focus state.
And there's, you just show this focus.
Bullet rectangle boundaries.
And you get rectangle values. You get the priority, how many nodes in the actual tree, and more. That's just a subset.
Accessibility tree.
Now the tree.
Slide 9.
The accessibility tree is really, really simple. It's a virtually duplication of what you get in the accessibility API. You'll get the same similar properties. It's hierarchical. There are subtle differences, as I've got up here, and I'll go through it.
Accessibility tree. Bullet UI contained in a structured
So it's again the UI. It's all elements on the UI. It's not taking everything. It's only taking what is necessary to provide the information to the person who's using the assistive technology. In a screen reader world, it's providing stuff such as the name, the role, the description if it's required, the different states. It has to go focus. Can I activate it? Things of that nature.
Bullet structure objects inherit. Bullet node in the accessibility tree requisite.
So it's a parallel structure, as I said before. And there's something down here I'm going to share.
Bullet objects populated with accessibility API specific states and properties. Bullet the accessibility tree is sub-set the DOM.
Okay, I've said that, so I'm trying to not duplicate because I really want to show you the actual how to look at this stuff.
Bullet not every DOM element is exposed as an accessible object.
So if you've got something on the screen, they like on there. I'm just trying animation that will not go into the actual DOM, into the accessibility tree. Because how do you represent that in a property? Because you've got something that's flying around the screen.
Bullet no semantic importance. No accessible object created. Bullet no semantic importance.
So if it's not semantically important, it drops it. So you don't get span in there. You do get div in there, actual fact, but you don't get span, for example. That doesn't go into the property, into the actual accessibility tree.
Slide 10. Configuring the accessibility tree.
So configuring accessibility tree is relatively simple, and I don't like talking, so I'm going to get my speech to do it for me.
One supported in Firefox 61 and above.
Okay, so 61 and above. So this is how you configure the tree. Okay, it's really simple.
2. Open your developer settings. 3. Open the DevTools settings. 4. Navigate through the settings and check the accessibility checkbox to make it available. 4. Navigate through the...
And that's it. 4 steps to make it available in your browser. It's available in Chrome, it's available in Edge, and they do show it differently.
Slide 11. Accessibility tree properties.
Now here's the tree properties. The first slide I'm showing is the actual tree, and I'm only giving the 2 fields. It's one line, it's one value that you get. And it's the role and the label. That's it.
Slide 12. Accessibility tree bullet listed properties on the right.
Now, there's multiple properties in the actual tree itself. You've got your name, you've got your role, you've got your value, you've got your state, the positioning, and so on. Okay.
Bullet name colon the item's name.
So thank you.
Bullet role colon the item's role.
So and that information is put across into the accessibility tree.
Some accessibility tools. 13.
Now tools.
Some accessibility bullet windows colon. Bullet inspect.
So you've got the inspect tool.
Bullet ACC checker.
AC checker. So the inspect tool I'm going to show, if I've got time, I'll show you today. And there's some other tools in there. You've got the one from Mac, which is part of the Xcode and development environment. The one for Windows, you have to install an SDK to make it work. Down the bottom, you will notice there's Window Edge and the developed browser that I mentioned. There's one also in there called AView, and it's made from another accessibility company in the world. It's open source. You don't have to use it anymore because the accessibility tree's in your browser. It's been there for a while, but now it's accessible. That's what made me excited.
Example Slide 14. Slide 14.
On here is a screenshot of a sample web page that I'm going to show you in a second.
Viewing your accessibility tree.
The next slide is another screenshot. Hopefully the screenshot worked out because it's really difficult when you're blind when doing this stuff. So it will give you the tree on the left-hand side. It'll give you all the properties on the right-hand side. Isn't this exciting stuff? Where I use this and where I put it in context, when I'm looking at a web page and I don't understand something going on, I use this tree. I also use all the other tools in there, but I use this tool that's on the screen.
Viewing your accessibility API.
Now we've got what the actual inspect tool looks like. Again, it'll have the objects on the, I think it's on the left-hand side. Don't correct me. And you've got the tree on the right-hand side. Same sort of concept. The difference, the huge, exciting, world-winning difference is you get every bloody app on the Windows. So if you're trying to find something and you can't hover the mouse over it, you have to navigate through the tree. So if you've got an application that says, no, 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 you go, oh, what the hell am I? So you have to work, you have to use some brain matter, and that's really expensive in my age.
App space.
Okay, the fun bit, the exciting bit.
Title is.
Who is asleep?
Magic of the window.
Put your hands up, come on. Okay,
Desktop.
You need to duplicate your screen.
A pro.
sorry?
You need to duplicate your screen.
Duplicate the screen. Okay, you better do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Windows P.
I don't duplicate.
Project. Duplicate. 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 Desktop.
I know.
Desktop.
Thank
Now,
you.
back to-
Folder view list.
Good,
view.
thank you. I'm duplicating. You don't want two of me, trust me.
Windows N.
Okay.
1. Start button.
Oh gosh, Jesus, Jaws.
ZM. Start button. Tilde.
Sorry, it's my typo. It's level 8. Who's a networker here? Who works in networking? Level 8, say, in ISO standard, you've got 1 to 7 for all the different phases. Level 8 is user. It's just an old bad joke.
1. 11Y example page. Enter.
Here we go.
Firebox.
Here, my...
Page has one heading and no links. Form. Heading level 3 form elements group start test form last name edit problem 1.
There you go. It's a sample web page that's been built to give this demonstration. I'm going to jump to the edit field.
Last name edit.
My last name, Frederick. So all what we'll do is press... I'll open up the context menu.
Inspect accessibility properties.
I've got the property already set, and I'm going to press enter. Now, this is the fun bit.
Enter. Leading menus. Last name edit.
Now,
Type
let's
in text.
see if
Form
Jaws...
Firebox read only. Blank. Browser tabs toolbar.
Let me find it now. Jaws didn't put me in there.
Form.html and label 0 button. Persist logs checkbox not. Filter output search ed. Toggle filter bar button. Clear the web console out. Accessibility panel frame.
Got it.
Name colon quote form quote. Accessibility tree view. Document colon quote form quote closed. 1 of 1.
So, as it says a tree, I'm not going to talk. I'm going to let Jaws do the work, because I pay it the money.
Document colon quote form quote open. 1. Heading colon quote form elements quote closed. Heading colon quote form elements quote open. 2 of 1.
So I'm going to... Now I've got a heading. I'm going to jump across.
Properties tree view. Name colon quote form elements quote.
The
1
name
of 5.
property is populated.
Roll colon quote heading quote.
It's a heading.
Actions colon left brace right brace closed. Actions colon left brace right brace open. Level 1. Length colon 0.
So it's a level 1 heading.
2. Level 0. Value colon quote quote. 4 of 5.
No value.
DOM node colon H3 click to select the node in the inspector.
That allows me to go and open up the DOM, and I can go and look at the code if I need to. So you can flick between the two.
Description colon quote quote. Keyboard shortcut colon quote quote.
So no shortcut. You can have a shortcut there. No description. By the way, in 6.2, Mozilla killed the help property because they don't use it. You want to find out all the different states. There is a web page that Firefox do reveal for. Geez, I can't think of the name of the creature, the name and after, but it gives you all the different states and all the different properties.
Child count colon 1.
So the first child
Index in parent colon 0.
and position 0.
States colon left brace right brace. State level 1. 1 colon quote a paid quote. 2 colon quote enabled quote.
And it's enabled. So that's basically what it'll give you. Now, I'm going to get this, close this down. I'm going to do this.
Menu escape.
I love to live dangerous.
Windows N. Desk MS. MS accessibility to enter. C colon T. Interop.search NS. Inspect.exe.
Okay, let's open up the inspector
Enter.
program.
Inspect left parent HWND colon 0 extension 000 or 06B2 right parent UI access. Read only.
Who understood that? So in here,
Left,
I'm just going to jump across.
F6. Tree view. To level 1. Quote inspect left parent HWND colon 0 extension 000.
Shut up.
Home. Level 1. Quote JAWS visual tracking window.
Okay, so here's all the different objects I'm going to navigate and you're going to see. JAWS inspect and visible is a special window to track focus.
Quote pane.
That's something.
Closed.
What is it?
Quote,
I won't open it.
Quote C colon / program files left parent x86 right parent back.
That's the folder I've just opened.
Quote opening the magic of the accessibility.
That's Firefox. So I'm going to go back up to the folder. Well, actually, no, I'll go down here.
Quote level 2. Quote zo dot bottom quote pane.
So that's a pane. So I can open that up and have a look at it.
Quote workspace quote pane.
Oh, that's a workspace. Could have a look at that. This sounds exciting.
Left parent null right parent title bar.
No title.
Level 1. Quote form dash level 1. Quote form dash Mozilla Firefox quote.
Yeah, let me.
Form dash level 2. Left parent null right parent title bar. Quote menu. Closed. Quote menu. Close. Quote menu. Closed.
Duplications.
Quote menu. Closed.
These are every object that's in Firefox that you are seeing. So as you can tell, it goes beyond what you normally go.
Quote menu.
Come on, where are you?
Quote menu. Quote.
I'm just.
Quote.
It's trying to quote me, but it can't.
Quote brown. Quote group.
Yeah, where are you?
Quote navigation toolbar. Level 1. Quote program manager. Level 2.
Here we go.
Quote group.
No, it's not finding it for me. Pain.
Level 1.
Okay.
Home. Quote JAWS visual tracking. Quote pane. Quote opening the magic of the accessibility tree and .pptx dash power. Quote C colon / program.
I'm going to go back to the folder.
Quote C colon / program files.
And I'm just going to find a menu.
Level 2. Quote UI ribbon top quote pane. Quote UI ribbon. Level 3. Quote ribbon quote pane.
Okay, let's go to the ribbon. Okay, I'm going to press F6.
F6. Read only edit.
And I'm going to go through these properties.
Name colon quote ribbon quote.
So that's the name, it's a ribbon.
Control type colon UIA underline pane control type ID left parent 0xc 371 right parent.
Who understood that one? So basically how UI works, it works on patterns. So if you've got a button, you can have a checkbox button, you can have a partial button, you can have a pop-up button, you can have a whatever type of button, you can push my buttons. But basically, you can have, in the old MSA, you had a set type of role. The UIA is far more flexible with all their patterns for the states, for the type of roles, for all those things. So I believe is Apple. So, and that allows, that's what this was talking about, the different patterns.
Localized control type colon quote pane quote.
So the localized is just telling you what it really is in more English term.
Value rectangle colon left brace L colon 16T colon 17.
That's your rectangle information.
824B colon 100.
Where it's on the screen. Well, if you've got a program, that's quite useful.
Is enabled colon true.
Yep.
Is off screen colon false. Is keyboard focusable colon true. Has keyboard focus colon false.
Ah, isn't that nice? You know which program you're on has focus. Wouldn't that be nice in the accessibility tree to know where you are, where has the focus?
Access key colon quote quote.
And so on. There's more information in there. You've got legacy information in there, you'll see in there, and that's really talking about MSA or I2 accessibility. Now, one thing I wanted to touch on is two browsers before I sign off, and a message. The two browsers out there, or the browsers like Google and Firefox, use I2 access. I was on a conference a while ago with Jamie, ex-NVDA guy. I can't think of his. Thank you. I can never remember his last name. And he was mentioning is that they're planning, and put that capitals, blinking lights, underlining, quoted, they're planning to move away from I2 access to UIA on the Windows platform to give better support for assistive technology. Google uses it, Edge uses their own UI. I have no clue, but I think it's MSA. Safari will use their own accessibility on their platform. I'm not sure what they use on their thing. You don't have to know all this stuff, but it's nice to know. All from a web developer point of view, do the right thing. Make sure you follow standards. Make sure you're putting the users in front of the design, not at the end of the design. Same goes for applications, same goes for mobile. The only area that I find very interesting in our world is, and no one really talks about it, is technology that is self-contained, like washing machines and things of that nature, and the accessibility in there. And that's something we should have a talk one day on. Anyway, I hope this was informative. I hope you got something out of it. There's a lot of information out there that talks about how this stuff works for the web browsers. It's really complicated stuff if you want to get into the development side for apps on the desktop. Google and Apple do a bloody good job with their user design. Yes, they might have problems in their actual framework, but they do very good work in that space, and there's a lot of good information out there. So go out, explore, and enjoy.
Thank you, Sean. We've probably got time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. No questions?
I'll ask a question. Sean, it's Renata. How are you going?
Good.
That's good. And thanks very much. For those of us who are not as tech savvy as some of the others in the room, including yourself, when it comes to giving advice about browsers and getting people to test with different browsers, what's the recommendation that you'd usually give? Do you want people to be, obviously not everyone's going to have access to JAWS and hear the beautiful voiceover speed that you've got, but what's your recommendation?
I've got 2. It depends on your organisation, it depends on your customer base. Ooh, and isn't that fighting words? So some organisations out there will focus on certain custom base due to the fact of what they have on their actual internal data. So for example, they might say JAWS is their product, and they might say IE Firefox is the product they will look at, and Mac there will be Safari and VoiceOver, because what customers come to it. I don't hold to that concept. You try as many browsers as you can. If you're programming Chrome and you bring your web page into Firefox or IE or Edge or Safari, it will play differently. I've seen applications that I've tested that was in Firefox, I could see the buttons with JAWS and NVDA. I brought it into Google Chrome and I couldn't see the buttons, to give you a live example. That's the best practice. In relation to screen readers, on Windows, NVIDIA and JAWS. Narrator works fine in Edge. Other browsers I wouldn't recommend it for.
Sure, we have another question.
Okay.
Hi Sean, it's Saxon from Deloitte Digital.
Yep.
I've done a lot of work with screen readers as part of my job as a front-end developer, and I understand they've come a long way in development over the years. Since you're probably what we would call a power user, do you feel like does it really satisfy your needs and requirements? Do you feel like there's any missing features or things that you feel are missing gaps for development in the future there? I'd be interested to know. I'm
going to answer this question in a warped way, left field. Hang on. Oops, I'm showing my real colours. The accessibility depends on platform. If I talk about mobile, there's a lot of improvements. I personally feel, and it's my personal opinion, is that Apple iOS, Apple mobile phone's great, but it's very RSI. So if I want to go and browse a web page, and I'm using the rotary, and I want to go to header, then I want to search by a link, then I want to search the way I navigate naturally for a web page, I'm twisting my thing. So therefore, I start in a sore forearm. It's not very intuitive. In the Mac environment, you have yes and no. It's black and white. So if your application is not using their API and not using their framework, I'm left in the dark. In the Windows environment, if you don't use the accessibility API, and it depends on the screen, NVDA and NVDA, but they use off-screen models. And there's an old screen called WindowWise. They use an off-screen model. So the off-screen model will allow me to do things that the accessibility framework might not. And I won't go any more deeper. Ask me later if you wanted me to go deeper. But if you use the Accessibility API, it takes a lot of heavy lifting off it. If there's extra features in these screen readers, yes, simplification, it's one. Making it more intuitive. What I have seen from my AI research I've done, there's a product out there, because the only reason I'm mentioning it, I'm excited about it, and I want it to come out in the field. There's a product out there that researchers have done where you come along with your UI, you pop up a little dialogue, you answer half a dozen questions, it changes the UI the way I want to use it. So if you're someone who has learning difficulties and you want simplified language, it'll change it. If you're someone and you just want a text interface, it'll change it. If you're someone who just wants graphics and no text whatsoever, it changes it. That's how I understand from the article I was reading how this product will work. And that is where we should be going. Plus conversation. That's where I believe we should be going with our user interface. And it might come about, it might not, but let's see.
Alley Camp, October 2018.